Welcome.
I'm Damian Woetzel, Director of Aspen Institute's Arts Programs, and in this particular venue, Julie Kent's former prince. So please welcome Julie Kent, Artistic Director of the Washington Ballet. It's good to have you with us. So we have, you guys are just going to have to endure us chatting, because that's what, we go back a long way. First time I ever saw you was in a pas de deux class at the School of American Ballet, summer of '85 or '86. Jeremy Collins, you did a jump, he grabbed you, he spun you around. I was like, wait, what? And it was like that from then on, pretty much. And we got to dance together a lot, and we'll talk about that. We have a representation of that. It's Julie and I doing Jerome Robbins' Other Dances at the Bolshoi, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's where that's from. She was, as you all know, or maybe you don't, but now you will, just the pride of American Ballet Theater for many years. Just an extraordinary dancer, an extraordinary person. And I was at New York City Ballet across the way, but somehow we managed to dance together quite a bit. Even in New York, a little bit, thanks to you.
And you.
That's true, actually. We reciprocated with, I was a guest at ABT with her, and she came over to City Ballet. But we're talking today a little bit about this next stage of your life at Washington Ballet. So it's been a kind of a habit of this program to invite the new leaders in Washington, whether it was Deborah Rutter when she arrived at the Kennedy Center, or Melissa Chu at the Hirshhorn, David Scorton at the Smithsonian, to come and have a discussion about, the big frame of the arts in America, the arts in Washington, D.C., the individual institutions, what their hopes, their dreams, all of those elements. So I'm so glad to have all of you here for that. We'll have a little discussion. We'll take some questions. We have a few videos we'll show and do things like that. But Julie, I thought we'd kind of just start by saying, first, just such a pleasure. Thank you. It's good to be dancing with you again. And tell us, a little bit, if you could, just about the overall vision. When you think about dance in Washington and the base that exists here over so many years, I mean, how many of you know Julie's actually from the area? She grew up here. So your first dancing experience was on the stage at the Kennedy Center as a little girl. And now you're putting other little girls on the stage. Right. How does that feel to you to be home, as it were?
Well, when we were presented with this opportunity, I think we could clearly recognize the potential of our impact. And as we were talking prior, there's so, obviously, I come from this area. I grew up in Potomac. I was born at Bethesda Naval Hospital. My first performance was at the Kennedy Center at New York City Ballet, as Damian said. And I was taught by Hortensia Fonseca, who was a student and very much a colleague of Mary Day, and Mary Day, who brought ballet to Washington, D.C. She planted this seed here in a very similar way that Lucia Chase founded American Ballet Theater. So you have these parallel of these extremely committed women that believe so strongly in their art, and they did anything in order to push their art into the community and make it relevant and make it important and make a meaningful impact on their community through their art. And so this was the footprint that was a part of my life. And when I went to American Ballet Theater, I had this extraordinary career that I felt invested so much in me. When you met me, I was just a teenage dancer like anyone, but I became a ballerina over time because the institution invested in me. Mm-hmm. They helped me, they developed me, and everybody that I worked with, both my partners, my coaches, all the people that came to stage the ballets that I learned, they all helped me develop my potential. They all taught me something and sort of injected their love and belief and passion of the art form into me. So that is what I bring to Washington, is the belief in my art and this beautiful footprint that has been forged by another courageous woman.
I like
Boom.
that. Boom. Mic drop. You know, when listening to you, it occurred to me how, and this comes back to me sometimes, and just I'm always shocked how young all of this is. Brought ballet to Washington. You just say, oh, when? Just now, like yesterday, it feels. And American Ballet Theater even, which is, you know, if not the oldest, it's virtually it's the oldest major ballet company in its current, with the name and copyright and all of that. I remember the 50th anniversary, like it was just the other day. It's just like this is how art forms grow in a country. Ballet itself isn't that old. I mean, all of it has the growth thing. And when you talked about the investment ABT made in you, I couldn't help but think about, oh my God, there's so many layers of that. Everything from the dancers, the teachers, the choreographers, the musicians, the composers, the lighting designers, the patrons, the audience, the architects. I mean, it's just the layers and layers that it takes to make something. And Washington is even further along in that continuum about the opportunity of creation. And so, not to lay that on you too heavy, but you know, you are a strong woman who can do extraordinary things with the opportunity of that creative moment. I think about that a lot.
I think about again, parallels with ABT and the Washington Ballet, and that the Washington Ballet is, as a performing company, is 41 years old. When it was when ABT was 40 years old, Mikhail Baryshnikov became artistic director. And
I like that parallel.
Well, thanks. Why I find it interesting is that it was a huge turning point for both companies, obviously, but ABT, you know, was a larger institution with a much more international platform, but it was still very much kind of put together, we're going to do this, let's make it happen. Not like Balanchine and Lincoln Kirsten, like everything done right and correctly and foundation and yes, and build it strong, build it to last. Your house is like well architected, well maintained. ABT house is like, we're going to do this, we're going to make it happen, and we do. And then eventually it catches up, and so it has these great moments where, I mean, the victories are so sweet because they're so well earned. But I just think about what that big page turn for ABT when Misha came, and how he changed the repertoire and he changed the whole approach, the artistic pursuit. Completely changed that sort of vision for what an American ballet, classical ballet company should and could be, was changed. And so, and there must have been a lot of aha moments for him as well.
I think there were.
And then now ABT is 77 years old, and obviously has gone a lot from there. So, I mean, and it doesn't seem like that long ago for us. I mean,
it's really not. But it's also, we think about the creative forces that make it all happen. Like, why are we doing all this? And, you know, you mentioned Balanchine, of course, who Lincoln Kirstein brought to America to really create American ballet. That was the goal. No small scale goal here. We're going to create American ballet. So he brings George Balanchine over from Europe after Diaghilev has died. Ballet Russe has ended in its official original form. And they start the School of American Ballet, where eventually I encounter you, and just generations and generations of dancers. But this is not that long ago.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And Balanchine and the Titans, if you think about it, and we're celebrating anniversary of Robbins this year, did other dances, and Fancy Free and West Side Story, centennial of Robbins and Bernstein. These are recent. I mean, I could almost, if I just squinted my eyes, see Jerry standing in the doorway, because it's not that long ago. And these are the founders, and Tudor, and Kenneth Macmillan, who was with you, and these people who created what we know as ballet. It's tremendously exciting if you think about the youth of it. And, you know, the opportunity when you think about building the house, I like that analogy. That's good. It's this well-built house. It's kind of, or you're just adding on little additions piece by piece, and it kind of spreads over the valley. What happens? Real estate's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, in many
Both
ways.
Figuratively and literally.
I mean, the way that City Ballet, it was Balanchine's genius and it was Lincoln Kirstein's genius to create homes that were solid. And Washington has this opportunity with these incredible institutions that now you run one of these institutions. Do you have real estate ambitions in Washington?
I have all kinds of ambitions, yes, but I feel, metaphorically, I talk all the time about building the artistic foundation that we can then build off of. And the process how I approach it and how I explain it is very, very similar to how I crafted my work as a dancer and how I'm sure you did, how anybody in a variety of fields pursues their work. And you just aren't better because you want to be better. You actually work to get better, and you are supplied the information in order to become better, the help, the guidance, the right food, the tutelage, the mentoring, and also the opportunities. I know you can be great in this ballet. I can see you doing it already. We're going to bring that into the rap. I see you can do this, and I can see the company dancing this, and then they own this ballet, and then they move on to the next one. But you have to build these cornerstones of a foundation in order to build the institutional knowledge of the entire institution, the dancer's knowledge of the art, of if you can dance Balanchine and Robbins and Tudor and Cunningham, and if you can speak articulately with all these languages, then you are, when somebody comes to create a new ballet on you, you have a gravitas of a physical vocabulary that you can speak very clearly with.
So thinking about that and its relationship to the dancers of today, I think that when you describe Misha coming in at ABT, 1980, right? 1980 he started. He brought in repertory that created a hybrid dancer over a very quick amount of time. Dancers like Hortensia's late son, like Peter Fonseca or Robbie LaFosse, who could dance both things. Could dance at ABT and dance at City Ballet. And now we have at City Ballet, just like in my generation, I was dancing with you going off to do Giselle because I felt I needed to do both things. Whereas it was a little more specialized in the years before that. There were Balanchine dancers, and there were ABT dancers, and there were all these different types, and a Twyla dancer, and a Merce dancer. And now we're in a moment of, I don't know what you want to call it, but we're all greedy to do everything to some extent. And part of that probably has to do with the fact that those great masters, the giants, have left the earth a little bit, and we're kind of reforming, and we're creating our new giants. But I'm wondering, like, as you nurture your dancers, that tension between specialist in one thing and knowing how to do everything must be kind of challenging, or is it? Or is it just exciting?
I think it's exciting. I feel like, that's one of the things that, as a dancer at ABT, I never felt like you're this kind of dancer. As much as it might be easy to make me that. I did Keytree, I did Hagar, I did everything and anything. And I was given that opportunity because the director and the people that were staging the ballets felt like I could do it. I mean, Pat Neary put me in Ballet Imperial when I was like 20.
Yeah.
Nobody was more surprised than me. It's one of the hardest Balanchine ballets around.
Yeah.
But she was like, you can do it.
You set the bar high. Yeah, that's right.
So I just love bringing a ballet into the repertoire and saying, go for it. Don't define yourself by, I'm this kind of dancer, I'm that kind of dancer, but try on the dress and see how you like it. And
right. Well, and then there's all the finer points. I mean, I'm looking over your shoulder at us and remembering that moment. So that's the very beginning of other dances, or the very end of the Ballerina. It's one or the other.
I think that's the beginning, and then there's another one
Why
at
do
the
you think
end.
we look so relaxed?
No, because it's done at the end. I put my head on your shoulder.
And on a good day, it's very good. Yeah.
I think there's another one, and you can see it's the end.
Well,
anyway.
What that is we're about to start to dance, and it's a very simple sequence of steps that Jerry played with till the day he passed from the earth. He would say, no, let's try it on 4. Hold 3 and go on 4. And no, keep moving through it and wait on 5. And literally, and we would just, have all these versions. And that idea that you never get there is what I think about when I look at that. And do you find that, I'm curious now, we're way off script here, generationally, I think there's shifts that go on, and I'm wondering how you feel like about younger generations. And I want to talk about your school and all of that, but that idea that you can never get there in a world where we can get it so many things like this is really interesting.
Well, that is just another way that I describe that artist pursuit, and that's one of the first things that I talked to the dancers about when I came last year was what I feel like I sum up what I learned in my whole career as a dancer, and what I feel like was the seed that Misha planted in me was that artist pursuit, that you get up every day and you start in first position and you build on what you accomplished the day before, but you just set your goal further. Like you just keep, you're never going to be there.
The horizon is out there.
It's there. You're not going to be there. Once you're there, it's over. It's done. And so that the whole joyous pursuit, and if you embrace that and understand that that is actually the reward.
That's what it is.
That's what
and
it
Misha
is.
is a terrific example, obviously, and still is to this moment. He's just continually readdressing and readdressing and readdressing.
He's a servant to his art. I mean, that's really, that his art always came first, and that is what I am trying to inject into these dancers, that they're young and they have it's such a different world. It's so, this, it's not even anything like when we were that age, but they still are hungry for that kind of guidance and mentorship of saying, yes, use your art to push yourself forward.
And that comes through the work every day in class, and then in rehearsal, and then I assume in all of that discussion. I mean, it's not an accident what you're describing. Misha talked to you, right? Or
Not really.
No?
No.
Little choice things?
I mean, occasionally, in a very I mean, he was very different then too. He hadn't raised his children. He wasn't a father. I mean, he was what, 38? I don't know. He was a young man, so he wasn't. It's what you know after you've done it that's really kind of more important than what you're sort of realizing you're learning at the time. And so I think it was just, yes, there were some things that he said, but it was more just the example that he set and how he worked every day. And then in retrospect, when I look at how he transformed the company as a director, as far as the repertoire he brought in, his development of talent, and how he approached leading a company, I never thought about these things when I was in the company working with him, but it's just all sort of.
There was a lot of layers on that, and there's he and so many others left home to come somewhere else, to a new country, to do what they wanted to do, to create. I mean, you think about Misha, I think about Balanchine and Stravinsky, expatriates working and creating the art of the 20th century. I mean, in the middle of they're far from home, and yet they are our legacy now, which is interesting. Let's talk a little bit about Washington as a place, because I mean, every time we go back to New York, it seems geographic, and every time I come to D.C. And I come around and I see the history and I see the so many aspects of it fill us with the knowledge that we are in our nation's capital. And enduring challenges, shall we say, that go on politically becomes almost beside the point at certain moments when we acknowledge that this is the center of our country. And you direct a ballet company in the center of our country. How does that responsibility manifest itself in a way? What are your hopes, in a sense? How are they on that scale to be the yes,
well,
I know they are, but
I want our ballet company to reflect the excellence of our nation in our nation's capital. I mean, I am an American artist. When I left the stage, I made a list of, at the advice of some well-meaning friends, they said, write everything down, Julie, just write it down, whatever you're thinking. So I was like, what do I want to do? What am I going to do? No more of this. I know. Oh, well. And so when I wrote it down, okay, I want to share my voice as an American artist, a woman, a ballerina, a mother. I want to advocate for arts education. I want to help develop the next generation of dancers. What bigger, more important platform do you have the opportunity to do that than in a ballet company in the nation's capital? So,
right.
And as a product of the artistic environment here,
yes,
not just, although there's great artistic environments throughout this nation, I am a product of the artistic possibility here.
I love that.
So for me to bring back and inject into my community everything that I have learned and love and has been invested in me about my art to my community is the debt of gratitude that I have, I'm almost obligated to do. That being said, it wasn't an easy yes, I want to do this. It was a well thought, well contemplated decision. But that, at the end of the day, was sort of the call, the throwing down the glove on the table. Like, you said you wanted to do these things, so either pick up the glove or sit back down.
Well, I am so glad you picked up the glove, and I don't know, some of you may have been at a performance I directed recently at Kennedy Center where Julie joined me on stage, and I remember saying, you are so lucky to have her because of what you just described. So we'll get back to that. Why don't we go through a few more pictures and see what Julie and I have for you. Let's just see, just because I don't know what else we got. Up.
That's a good one.
Oh, there we are again. Let's go back to slideshow and just kind of go through. There aren't many. Because I think, oh, look at that. Oh, 'tis the season.
That's Nutcracker and Lake Cities.
Play from current slide is good.
It's somewhere in the middle of Texas.
It's somewhere in Texas. So for many years, Julie and I, on the day after Thanksgiving, would fly to Texas to do a gig in a high school outside of Dallas.
With live orchestra.
With live orchestra. Now, why are we sharing this with you? Well, we're sharing this with you because it's a fond memory for us, and it was something that we both looked forward to. We watched kids grow up in another part of the country year after year after year. Stephen Locke, he's in Pacific Northwest Ballet, and we'd see the development of what it meant on a local level, what ballet was becoming. It was so interesting to see. We watched kind of like mega mall ballet develop, where I remember one year we came back and they were like, well, here's our new place, and it was this ginormous thing in a mall, basically, in a strip mall, with like 8 studios, and suddenly they had 600 kids, and this is the kind of thing, and we'd get on the plane and we'd go and do this. And then on Sunday night, we'd fly back to New York. What else do we remember about that?
We would meet Wendy Whalen and Phil at the Chili's at the airport.
So we'd be in DFW, and my colleagues, Wendy Whalen and Philip Neal from City Ballet, had another Nutcracker gig, kind of, I guess, tangentially miles apart in Dallas, but enough room for that many things to go on that they could have us and
plenty
them.
of sky in Texas.
Plenty of sky. And we'd meet back at the airport every year and compare notes on our gig. And,
they didn't have orchestra.
They didn't have orchestra, see? Yeah, we lorded that over them. We had a lot. But, and the interesting thing about that is so many. Nutcracker, right? I mean, it's the staple. It's how things grow. We'll talk a little bit about your Nutcracker, which
our
is
school,
our school, and how that is the gateway drug for so many kids. My first Nutcracker was 7 in Boston. How about you?
ABT.
You waited till you were older.
Well, we didn't do it at my ballet school in Maryland. We did not do the Nutcracker. So my first Nutcracker was at ABT.
Wow, so late bloomer.
Yes. I made up for lost time.
You did, yeah. Interesting. Well, as a thing, what happened with that is that Balanchine brought it to New York City Ballet, and it became what it became, the 1953 premiere, and suddenly it's this thing, it's just the juggernaut, and it finances companies for the year, it does all these things. But for us dancers, it's something that we, I don't know, we come at in so many different ways, I guess, is the thing. All right, what else we got?
Yeah.
I think it's more other dances. Oh, there's the end.
That's at the end.
See, that's where it was a good day. She's
and
resting.
That's a different, I think that's
City Ballet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when Julie came to New York City Ballet as a guest for a celebration of Jerome Robbins that we were doing. And that's back at the Bolshoi.
Yeah.
I love that picture because we're really dancing. We're not just making positions. Do you feel that, I mean, to me, dancing is about voice, Julie. It's like about having a voice. Like Wynton Marsalis, I've heard him coaching young students, and he'll say, you don't practice talking like Alex. You just talk. And I want you to play the trumpet like Alex now. How do you find that? I mean, and I think that I can only speak for you. You are totally dancing like Julie. And when you think of like the children in developing voice, like in your 5 campuses of schools, by the way, how do you teach teachers? Do you think about that, or are you hands off, hands on? What's your?
I'm trying to develop that. I'm not the head of our school, but I am the head of the institution, and I brought Xiomara Reyes, my ABT colleague, who grew up in Cuba and knows Cuban school. And she's very passionate, and I trust her, and she's a very good person and very passionate. And so my teacher, Hortensia Fonseca, is I didn't really realize this, but very similar.
Basically,
Latin,
you got your teacher.
Very passionate, very committed, not ambivalent. And Mrs. Fonseca was very much like that, but above all, I knew she loved all of us. There wasn't, and again, it's hard to compare a ballet school 40 years ago in small town Bethesda with maybe 100 students to a huge school that has 1,000 students. So it's
wow. You have 1,000 students?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
That's incredible.
Yes. So we have 850 students in our Northwest campus, and then we have about 350 students at our school at the Arc, which we've had for 11 years, and then we have a small campus in Alexandria, Virginia. So
you're actually up in the 1,300 range already. You're higher.
Yeah, I mean, that includes adult students and the full range. But it's do you
feel everybody should dance?
I would think everybody should have the opportunity to dance, yeah. I mean, everybody dances anyway.
Right.
It's just learning
So we'll get there.
Ballet.
I hadn't thought about that, but we have to make them dance at some point today.
Dance for life, isn't there, there's all kinds of, I'm sure the Aspen Institute Dance Division can do a study about
Aspen Dance Division
how the benefits.
That's right.
benefits your life and your health and mental health. And but my feeling is that a teacher should, a ballet teacher should, instill a lifelong love of the art form into the student. That's, to me, like the first thing. You should love it. And then second, you should help the dancer fulfill their potential, whatever their potential is. I mean, not every kid has the ability to become a mathematician, but you still want them to be the best at math they can be, you know, and that doesn't mean everyone's a winner, but it means everybody has potential that deserves to be developed. And so that, you know, and that looks and feels and sounds different with all of us. You and I would be different teachers, but I feel like, we both love our art and we want other people to love it. And so that is what would propel us in our teaching.
It's so interesting to me to listen to that. That's a real ethic that you're describing, you know, about that idea that there's always a high level of potential. Before you said, but we never get there, and we have to acknowledge that as we do it, but that it has to come from a place of love and that you have like an investment in it. I mean, our generation and prior to, was a little rougher, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is where everybody talks about. We walk through the snow, but no, it's not that. It's just that the training and the focus was less. It was more. Not everybody's a winner. It was a little Darwinian.
Oh, I think it was really cruel. A lot of it. I mean, how you were in fear of being humiliated all the time in a studio with.
Yes,
whether Robbins or Tudor or Baryshnikov or a lot of the people.
Yeah.
That's just Agnes DeMille.
Agnes DeMille, famously. Jerry Robbins,
But everything's different now. I mean, it's just, and as it should be. I mean, it's evolution.
That's right.
I think having the respect of whoever walks in the room is key, whether it's a 4-year-old child or a 40-year-old adult student, and perhaps
you engage in something together that you're doing. It's interesting. I find that a lot of what we're talking about is kind of a balancing of history and, you know, where we came from and to what we want to accomplish today, and that's really reflected as you choose repertory, as you choose what you want your company to dance. And you mentioned some of the things like, it's exciting to say, this dancer, that would be so great if they did Giselle, for instance. I would love that.
Well, for like Prodigal Son, we did in our Russian master's program because we have Jonathan Jordan, we have Brooklyn Mack, and Diladen Lovu. These are young men that should dance that ballet. I mean, you know what it gave you. I know what it gave Ethan Stiefel, and I know what it gave me doing the Siren. Another.
Yeah.
I did the Siren, you know?
Yes, you did.
Why? Because...
Oh, God, we're going to do Prodigal?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. But again, history.
And so I was, you know, you see the talent and you see this person should have the opportunity to dance that. It's going to change them. That's the kind of rich career that these people deserve. They need to have those ballets that will change them as people because it will instill in them the love and passion of their art that will help propel the art form forward in the next generation. You know, so I mean, the reason why I love dance so much is because of my relationship with it, just personally, but it's also because of the people that taught it to me and the people I danced with. Yeah. And I love it so much, and that's what is fueling my belief and passion for it. And so we have to make sure that we instill that same experience in the next generation so that they can keep it relevant, keep it alive, and say, yes, this is a reflection of the human experience.
That's interesting about like the idea of story and, you know, being a method of that. So the dances that have a story, like Prodigal Son, for instance, or Giselle. We're going to go to the first video in a minute. Whenever you have it, you tell me. But we're going to do that soon. And then there are ballets that are quote-unquote plotless, that are just abstract works that have a deep meaning just in their steps or in the way they relate to the music. And traditionally, your company was the home of story, in a sense, or so it was said. You did the full lengths, and City Ballet was more abstract. But already, she's talking about Prodigal Son, which is balancing the City Ballet, and Jerry Robbins started at ABT. And his other dances has no story. There's no, and that was done for Misha and Natasha Makarova. So these lines are very blurry. But I'm thinking a little bit about the role of story, because I remember making a choice to go to City Ballet, and you made a choice to go to ABT. And we kind of picked our ground where we wanted to grow. Right. And dancers, we do this. We all do this in various ways. We think, where's my ground? Where am I going to grow? What's going to be for me? And for me, it wasn't about the story, but in the end, I retired doing The Prodigal Son. Right. It's like you don't know where it's going to come from. And I remember working on that ballet particularly over probably 15 years, maybe, from the first time I danced it till I retired. I imagine, how many, Giselle? About 15, maybe a little more even?
Longer, yeah.
Longer. And yet it still becomes new, and the corrections come back, and the people who said things to you that made sense or didn't, and all of that. So, well, let's watch that clip, if you have it, of Giselle, which you chose to focus so much of your career on. Got to. Maybe they're having trouble with the video, so we're just going to have to dance it. Oh, there it is. Okay, roll tape. We got a couple of tiny little clips. We're not doing full-length videos today.
Don't worry.
Da-da. So where are we in the ballet? Just tell us, what are we looking at?
I think this is right before Giselle's variation.
Yeah.
And, it's the grape harvest, and
technology.
so they're making her the queen of the harvest. They put a little crown on her head. Albert comes out, and she does a little dance for him.
Yes.
And then they run off, and then when they re-enter, Hilarion.
Okay, so for those of you who has not seen Giselle, okay, we have one.
Yay.
See?
Good.
It's good. What's the point?
What's the point?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's one of the most beautiful romantic ballets in history.
But what's the moral message? Is there a deep thing that we're supposed to walk away with?
There's many, but it's basically about betrayal and love and forgiveness and lessons learned and
lessons learned, betrayal, love, and forgiveness.
Yeah, and then
wow.
there's a death and coming back, graveside visits. It's just really beautiful.
Julie, we have to talk more about this. So, if you have it, go ahead. It's fine. Giselle.
Yes.
So, when you pass that on, are you? How do you resist just passing on your Giselle?
Well, I don't resist that, but I don't say do it the way I did it.
Okay.
But I
Tell
definitely.
us more about that.
I mean, I think when Natasha coached me in Giselle, she didn't coach me how somebody else saw Giselle. She gave to me everything she thought about the role. And then it's up to the intelligence of the artist in front of you to absorb that and then make it your own. And so I don't resist saying whatever I have to say about how you do the step or how I think it should look. It's going to look different on them anyway. They have, but I think how I understand the ballet and how I've learned from Baryshnikov and Natasha and Nureyev and Victor and Georgina and all the people.
Did you work with Rudy?
He came and danced ABT, and I was Moina Zalma when he was Albrecht. Yes, I saw up close and personal.
Wow.
Yes.
So we're talking about Rudolf Nureyev. Let's do this, right? So
Yeah.
I knew Rudolf a little
Right.
bit, and he was someone, when I was in Boston ballet school, little boy, he would come and do Don Quixote as the guest star.
Wow.
So I was a little boy
Okay.
in that. And then Swan Lake as well. I was the guest, and I'd be holding an umbrella or something, but I'd kind of
Right.
watch this creature known as Nureyev kind of existing, and just larger than life, everything like that. And later on, he saw me dance as a student, and he actually told me to go to New York, and I was in LA then. He was like very formative, and then he saw me later, and he told me to wear tighter tights and other things that was like, it was like varying levels of things. But I always thought, oh my God, just the level of experience, we're both doing this a lot
Right.
today, I don't know why, but level of experience that can be passed on was at an extraordinary high level
Yes.
with Rudolf. So did you have that experience?
No,
Did
he
you get
didn't
any of that?
I
Did he
was just
notice you? Did he?
watching. No, he was performing, and it was towards the end of his career and his life, and so it was kind of just watching a live action hero. I was just sort of standing there, what? But the wealth of experience and knowledge that these people had,
Yes.
and how they just said whatever they had to say, that then sort of altered how you approached everything else after that. I mean, that's I guess that's the power that Misha or Nureyev or Makarova, to a certain extent, like if you say those little pearls they dropped, even if they flicked them at you, however they were delivered, they made an impact on you. So I remember my first coaching session with Natasha on Giselle, like it was yesterday, and she did the whole mad scene for me. She just did it downstairs at the Met in the C19. She just played the music. She did the whole mad scene. It was beautiful. I'll never forget it. So that's what I can give these dancers that nobody else can.
That's right, and take advantage of that opportunity.
All of everything that Marcia Heide told me about Giselle when she did it, and she's coming in February to work with our dancers on Romeo and Juliet, and
wow,
all of those layers that we've been so privileged to experience. That how are the dancers going to know that unless you share it and tell them? And so, a ballet like Giselle, I mean, I danced the peasants when I was 17 years old, and then danced every role in the ballet except Myrta until my very, very last season at ABT. So
you can't imagine what it was like. I have to just jump in and say that. Like when she describes being 17 and in the corps, dancing at the Metropolitan Opera as a peasant, just like the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of don't know how you got so lucky. And don't think it's not lost on us as dancers. That I remember the 18 in the corps of the Four Seasons, like in a bacchanal outfit, kind of like jumping around and going, how did this happen? And then it was this magical time that happens every year, Lincoln Center, where ABT's at the Met and City Ballet's over at State Theater, and we somehow cross paths constantly all day long, and we're each like in our separate worlds. I mean, I just remember those days so well.
And so now, half of those dancers in the second act of Giselle, they're teenagers. They're where we were.
Yeah.
It's not at Lincoln Center, it's at the Kennedy Center. It's in our nation's capital.
We love the Kennedy Center.
And it's exactly.
That's
and
right.
They're so hungry, and they want that career, and they want that knowledge, and they want whatever it is that you have to offer, that I have to offer, and they work so hard to get to that next level, and they want it.
I think that cross-pollination, though, happens in a lot of different ways. I was picturing our experience at Lincoln Center very specifically. But at the Kennedy Center, for instance, I remember being there a few weeks ago, and the Kirov was in one theater, I was in the Terrace, and we're just like, the opportunity to mix. And I think Washington has that extraordinary opportunity with the institutions here. National Gallery, Corcoran, I mean, the visual arts things are just unbelievable. The Harmon Center, all of the theater, arena stage. We have so much to talk about. Sorry, we're gonna move on. Next video, let's just see what it is. Okay, Tudor Ashton. Okay, so that's a real mix. Tell us a little bit about how that came together, or why, just anything that comes to your head when you see those three things together.
Well, that was our closing program of my inaugural season as artistic director, and when I was trying to rapidly put the season together at Pret-a-Manger in Union Square, how about this? On the phone, I really wanted to bring in Jardin et Lilas by Tudor, and The Dream. And we had a opera house. It would only fit in the opera house. That's why it was there. And in examination of the season I had prepared, I feel that new work, new choreography is really an essential part of the diet of a thriving arts institution. You need that opportunity to create work reflective of our time, for the dancers to be the muse, to feel ownership of a piece, to have that sort of both collaborative but also pressure to sort of come through with something that has potential to then be passed on, oh, you can be that's the other dances of 20, obviously it's not Jerome Robbins, but you need that opportunity for new work. You need to, as a dancer and as an organization.
Is that in your master plan, like looking ahead, lots of new work, and balance? What's your balance?
There's so much risk involved with new work. First of all, it's very expensive, and then you don't know, and that's the whole point. It's a glorious mystery. You don't know if it's going to have legs and stay on for years, or if it's a one and done, but the point is, you learn so much in the process of the creative process that then informs the dance you're doing. I mean, all those years at ABT when we had the city center season, we were creating all those new works. Half the ballets have never been seen again, but they all made My Swan Lake better. They all informed my work as a dancer, and it was an important part of the sort of artistic landscape of the company. And so you have to, I think a balance is, you can't just risk it all the time, but you should have that sort of, also choreographic talent needs to be developed. If they don't have the opportunity, we won't have the next Jerry Robbins or Balanchine or
Twyla,
even more modest. You won't have that voice.
I think of it as those opportunities for collaboration too. I mean, and when I look at the opportunities here about the ideas that could be developed with local partners in different ways, I just think that opportunity for new work, that is what it gives you. You can do it with existing historic works too. There's ways you can reimagine, I suppose. But that idea of taking a young new choreographer and she mixes with a visual artist, and that possibility of creativity is ever present in that venture. The second you step out and you say, okay, new, start defining new, and it keeps going. It's exciting for the dancers, God knows. We all loved it.
Yes. So
and the audience.
We invited, I had just, when I left ABT, I had just seen a few works by Ethan Stiefel, colleague of ours. And he's, hungry to have the choreographic opportunity, and so I wanted to, I asked him, coincidentally, our week at the Opera House at the Kennedy Center directly coincided with President Kennedy's 100th birthday. And so I asked him, would he please make a ballet that would celebrate the centennial of JFK? That's it. Like, not you can run with that however you want, you know.
Yeah.
And he decided to correlate it with JFK's space initiative and his desire for us to enter the space race and sort of just be those people that went forward. So that's the ballet that he came up with. It opened the program, and then we had Anthony Tudor's Jardin aux Lilas, which was from 1938, pre-World War I. He created it, Ballet Rambert in London. It was one of the first principal roles I danced as a young dancer, again, a teenager, I think. And then we closed the program with The Dream by Sir Frederick Ashton, which is one of my all-time favorites, and the company looked great in it. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
and
gorgeous on that
love
stage.
That ballet so much. It's everything in one act. It's very well edited.
Very well edited.
Yes, which is very important.
Very important. We all need an editor. That's another one for the wall.
Yes, we all need an editor.
That's right. Okay, let's next video. Let's see what we got.
Balanchine Tharp has something for everyone. It opens with Allegro Brouillon, which Balanchine said is everything he knew about classical ballet in 16 minutes, followed by 7 sonatas by Alexei Ratmansky, one of the greatest creative voices of the 21st century. And we close the program with 9 Sinatra songs, by the iconic Twyla Tharp to Old Blue Eyes Frank Sinatra. Something for everyone, elegant, excellent, and we hope you come and join us.
This was last season, so it's not going to be this April.
No. These are all, we're just doing a little retrospective, and then we'll talk about the future.
Yeah.
So Twyla is very well known to all of us as a force, and continues to be with her company. And important for dancers to get to try that on, right?
Yeah, I
really
mean,
is.
you know, again, the 9 Sinatra songs was something that had been in the repertoire of the Washington Ballet previously, and so at that point when I was planning it, I just knew the company was big enough to dance it and had somewhat of institutional knowledge about the piece. But the other, and Allegro Brouillon, I think hadn't been danced in a very long time, if at all, by the company, but I knew it was large enough. It's a very small cast, 10 people.
It's a magnificent ballet.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of editing.
Which I think I first saw it on our tours together back in the 90s.
Yes.
We brought that on the Cami tours. And then I really wanted to bring Alexei Ratmansky's choreography into the company, and 7 Sonatas was a perfect fit. I know the ballet inside and out because it was created on me and my fellow cast members, and so.
Different forms of classicism in each one. Yeah, beautiful. Let's go to another one, because I want to make sure people have time to ask questions. So that was, we just got the Forsyth, not the Killian and the Peck, but boy, is that good. That is really something. It still really hits.
The dancers love dancing it. They had danced it the season before I saw the company do it, and I thought they did it very well.
Yeah.
And so I brought that back for a second season, and then I added, Increases was already sort of slated, so when I was thrilled because...
I'm sure very happy. This is with Justin Peck's ballet, Increases.
Yeah, and then what was the...
Third one was Killian.
Petit Moor. So again, the company had danced that.
These were more that you chose and curated and thought, let's cycle those back in.
Yes, exactly, and I knew the ballet, and so,
You know, one thing that comes to light when you look at these videos is what a gorgeous, beautiful, pluralistic, diverse company you have.
Yes.
And how important we feel that is today within the arts and society, and you know, we recognize our responsibility. You feel, I mean, how do you approach that question? Do you have a question, or you just think, my God, I'm so lucky I have this wonderful, diverse company, and I nurture it? And
yes, but I think it's a matter of continuing to develop talent
Yes.
that's diverse. I mean, if you don't look for talent outside the box, then you're not going to find it. And so that's one of the wonderful aspects of being in this position is when you see that talent that takes all shapes and colors and forms, but then you have the opportunity to say, yes, let's develop this, let's develop this. And you know, that's developing the talent is such a part, it's so crucial in anything. It's not just with diversity, but diversity is part of the development of the talent. Developing diversity, developing each individual and the collective.
Yeah. And throughout all areas, I mean, I think that we're all focusing very strongly on trying to make sure that voices are developing across the spectrum in choreography, in the staff, and audience in every way that, you know, has not been traditional in our art form. And I think that's a responsibility, and it's beautiful to see on your stage.
Yeah, I think just in order for ballet to continue to be relevant, it has to mean something to everyone and not just some people. And
that's
so
right.
that's, you know.
Well, speaking of mean something to everyone, the Nutcracker is here. Let's just do that quickly, and then we'll move forward.
You know, I'm a Nutcracker parent.
Okay.
Yes.
So, November 30th.
That's last year,
but you're
opening November 30th again, the
Yeah.
preview, and then December 1st opening night. So
How's it going?
it's going good. We already did 4 performances at the Arc.
That's what I thought. I thought you did that already.
I said I'm a Nutcracker parent, not as in a parent in the party scene, but as in my daughter's in the Nutcracker.
I got it. How is she doing?
She's loving it.
Oh my God. Okay, so we're going to open for questions now, and then we'll wrap up. We have about 20 minutes left, but I wanted to make sure that anybody who had questions. Do we have a microphone? So if you raise your hand, we'll bring mics to you. So we'll start right down here, and then we'll kind of work our way back. We'll go over here next. Yeah.
Thank you for heading up the Washington Ballet. We are looking forward to a marvelous season. We've already seen some already. But I have a question. You're developing performers, but performers have to have an audience. So what are you doing for the audience? Do you see a difference between a New York audience and a Washington audience at all?
Well, for me, it's a little bit. I see in New York an ABT audience and a New York City Ballet audience. And so when I go to see New York City Ballet, I don't see the same people that I see at the Met. So what I'm trying to find is the Washington Ballet audience. And I think that is something that is being developed and has to be developed at the moment, because that identity now under my leadership, that vision of what this company should be, at what I feel it should be and what it can be, has to also have the audience then to watch it. And so that is a big part of what the responsibility of the institution has to do. And that's a big part of our roundtable discussions all the time. Yeah.
Yes, hello. My name is Meryl Seacrest, and I have to tell you, I was writing about Washington Ballet when Mary Day was running it on a very low level. I did little tiny newspaper pieces for them, and I'm probably one of your oldest students. I just stopped because I can't do turnout at this point in my life. But I was privileged to see rehearsals up front. And I would highly recommend that if you can possibly do it, you get audiences to come in and see some of these final rehearsals, because there is no way, if you're in a big auditorium, you can possibly experience the magnificence of people who are dancing 5 feet away from you or 10 feet away from you. It's a whole other experience. It's a mind-boggling experience. I've been fortunate enough to do that. And I mean, how many people you can get in? Not very many, but you can, on the other hand, you can make people ballet fanatics for life if you can figure out a way to do it.
I think that whole idea of the open rehearsal process, I mean, I've been so inspired by historically Leonard Bernstein's Young People's Concerts, which introduced so many people to the idea of what classical music could be, that it just, I mean, I still have people say, oh, I was there, and this was, you know, and this is, I give my kids, I thought, you know, this is how. And it's definitely, it's the inspiration for the demo series I do at Kennedy Center. Hey, Meg, how are you? Which is all about that kind of sharing. How much of that do you do at this point? Do you want to do more? Are there forums for that? Maybe other partner institutions would host things so you could get other people who might not ordinarily?
We do have quite a few open rehearsals, 3 or 4 for every program that we're doing. We have some, they're titled different things for different audiences. So we have Beer, Ballet, and Bubbly for the younger people. Exactly. Oh dear. But it, you know, it's, it brings in the happy hour crowd on Fridays. Then we have open rehearsals for our different audience.
So you try that,
base. And then we have one other, they're all slightly different experiences, but it's basically getting that up close and personal experience. And trying to, I think that's being close to anything that you're interested in, but you don't really even know about that much, but you don't even need to or want to.
Yeah, but it gives you this kind of gives you a curiosity that you don't have otherwise. I mean, to me, it's like getting to go to the museum with an artist talking about the work. I mean, I just want to know more, and then I care more, and I think
it's fascinating for any field to have that kind of insider opportunity. But then with dance, it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and you see how physical it is and how much the dancers put into it, and also you see how the corrections make such a difference.
Yes.
Wow. And then you understand it's a visual art. I mean, the reason why you put your arm there and your shoulder down a little more is because
it's better.
It looks different.
Yes, because it looks different. Not better. It looks different. That's right. We can go right across the front row here. Start here. Yep. Question.
Aside from the major ballet schools, why do you think there's still a wide gender disparity at many places? I recall going to a University of Maryland, attempted a Nutcracker production with their modern dance students, and they couldn't find a male dancer for any of the parts. And I'm guessing outside of Washington Ballet or American School Ballet, there's still a much larger number of women or girls than boys. What can be done to address that?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, not to say there's no issue. I mean, I think that, I can say that when I was growing up, I was, frequently one of the few boys. But there was a boys' class at the Boston Ballet School. From the time I was 8 years old, there were 15 of us that were there, and it just grew and grew. And I think in our experience, like at Lake Cities, I mean, it's in the little Nutcracker in Texas, out in wherever it was, Arlington, right? Home of the Fighting Farmers.
Flower Mound. Louisville.
Louisville. Tons of little boys actually participating. So I'm hesitant to say it's the issue it once was, but I think it's due to it's the heroes. I mean, to me, it was Eddie Villela. I sat in an 8th grade science class, and for some reason, they put up a picture of Eddie Villela flying through the air. And the kids went, "Is that what you do?" And I was like, "Exactly." That's it. Right
Just
there.
like that.
That's
me.
That's right there. So, there's that. All right, anyway, let's go on. Next question.
First, I want to say that the evening you did with Jerome Robbins, fabulous.
Thank you.
I really hope you'll do more of that. Everyone
Yeah.
I know who saw it said, this only ran for 2 nights.
Yeah,
Come
thank you.
on.
Thank you. Hear that, Meg?
I do
And I
hope
had my distinguished guest with me, too, so I don't know if she was there that night you were there.
it was
Yeah.
marvelous.
Yeah.
Just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I echo what was said before about getting more people involved. That was, very much a behind the scenes, but the same type of thing with getting people involved in the rehearsals and being up close. The first time I saw Washington Ballet rehearsing, and I was as close as I am to you right now, and it changes your view to seeing the athleticism and that type of thing, that the control. And I think if more people, if you're looking at audience building, getting more people to have those kinds of opportunities might help with that.
Okay, thank you. Another question, right back here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I'd like to speak kindly of your early experiences in Texas, dancing on the high school stage, because it's hard to describe in this world where so much of what we used to know as performing arts is seen on a video or a screen, or it's something that you read about or Twitter about or whatever. The impact of seeing real, serious, professional performing artists in one's local community just has a dynamic impact on that. I come from the sticks. Has a tremendous impact. So I hope in your future endeavors that you will remember Houston or other small cities and continue the high school stage, with, perhaps not with you, but with some of your students.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, these opportunities to kind of have an impact, it kind of always amazes me a little bit. And it usually is the most amazing when you don't expect it. The kind of joy of the unexpected. Somebody singing somewhere, somebody playing, and then dancing. Oh my God, amazing. All right, another question. You can go right here.
I recently was in St. Louis, which is a very small ballet company, and they had a performance, Tom Gold, the choreographer, and Amy Swihart. And I wondered if you could talk about how to incorporate new choreographers that many of us would not know about. And number two, the level of talent. I mean, obviously, ballet companies are ranked a bit. They are, the talent. And how do you make yourself stronger? How will you make Washington Ballet be stronger without not supporting the dancers you currently do have, but also recognizing that to be one of the best, you will, have to nurture the best talent?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to tackle the second part of your question first. When you think about the best in a ballet company, I think there's a few different ways you can look at that. One is the highest budgets. So we have New York City Ballet, San Francisco Ballet, ABT. They have $65 million budgets. That doesn't necessarily mean if I'm trying to define excellence in that kind of thing, I don't think size is the determiner. If you look at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and you look at the Frick Gallery, they are defined by their content, not by their budget. So the Washington Ballet, in my opinion, does not need a $65 million budget to be considered a great company. It needs to have, when it presents, it needs to be curated with excellence. It needs to present products, works that reflect what the possibility of our art form. And so what I am hoping for is the trust in the Washington community that you and everyone in this community will trust my stewardship of the Washington Ballet and my knowledge and love of my art form, that I will present for the Washington Ballet what I feel like represents excellence to scale. And that it shouldn't be, well, what is that? What is that piece? I don't know if I like that one, or I don't know like that one, or I've never heard of that choreographer. But that it's, Julie's building something, we trust her, and we either A, know that whatever she's going to put on the program, she thinks the dancer should dance it, we should see it, or if it's a new work, that that choreographer deserves that opportunity. And it's that kind of trust in an artistic leader that you need to develop. And so that's what I'm working for, and that there is not a shortage of talent in the dance world as far as the dancers. There is a shortage of the nurturing, of the development of the talent and positioning them for success. I don't pick ballets for our company to do unless I know that they can do them. They probably don't even know they can do them. Those dancers have no idea how good they are because they haven't had the opportunity to be positioned for success. And so that's my answer.
It's you doing
to
Jardin as a teenager.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, and
Yes.
then as far as how do you identify a choreographer that has the talent, as far as, tell me about your first question.
She was said a version of, how do you integrate them in? How do you find the talent of choreographers?
Right.
But also, how do you make it a part of the whole? I think that's what she said. Yeah.
I mean, for me, there's so many. There are a lot of young, hungry choreographic voices, and I think also when we were talking about diversity, you have to create opportunities for other voices to be heard, not just the ones that are always heard.
This is right. I mean, I often think of it as frameworks. Like we're creating frames that we're hoping that you will all come and see what's in this frame and then partake in it and take a piece of it and own it a little bit, find something on it. And some frames are about, the classics that we build our foundation on, and some of them really are about representing the pluralistic society we hope for. If that's what you set out to do, you think, you know what, I want to say something with, I'm putting myself in your position, with my company. And these are the voices that can say that. And that's part of that proposition, that this is, what you and your company and your leadership bring together, that opportunity to say something. And I suppose the real shame is if you don't say something, right? That's in the end, that's the shame. Yeah.
And so how you incorporate, I mean, that is a challenge though as the artistic director in the planning, is how you can incorporate that new voice into either existing works, or you create an evening, as we have this year, to just celebrate new voices. So we have an evening of 3 world premieres. And so San Francisco Ballet is doing, 16 world premieres in 2 weeks. New York City Ballet does it all the time with Diamond Project. It's like a new work factory. Just churn them out. And some of those things stick around, and some of them are one and done. You'll never see it again.
That's right.
But that's what it's exciting about it. Did you see it, or did you see it? You'll never see that again. Yeah. So that trying to create.
That's what we say. Never been done, and for a reason.
Right. Never been redone. Right. Exactly. I mean, I've asked. Is that whether it's an old Balanchine? I mean, Balanchine and Ashton and all the greats have those works that have been done, but.
Sure.
And I'm always like, is that something that we should think about?
You're just like me. I'm always like, there's something there.
Sometimes people say yes, and sometimes they say no.
Leave that one alone.
Just there's a reason why.
That's right.
Victor always brings up about Balanchine's Pam Tig.
Oh,
Pan Am makes the going great because they got a big.
They got
branch.
a jingle and the whole thing. Yes, that's a legend. A legend.
I don't think that's.
It's not coming back. No, it ain't coming back.
Balanchine.
No. No, for no centennial, nothing. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to finish, but let me just close by speaking to the future a little bit. You told me about one of your ideas that you're going to be doing that I think is tremendously exciting, and it speaks to the idea of audience, how you bring people in, but it also speaks to the nurturing of dancers, and it speaks to a company at the center of our nation, bringing in people from around the nation and probably around the world. I'm not really sure how far you're going to go with this. It's far. All right. To infinity and beyond.
Exactly.
Tell us about Washington Ballet Welcomes.
Right. Well, this is what I'm hoping to present next season and beyond, is really just, as you described, an opportunity for the Washington Ballet to host dancers from first New York, and then globally from there, as you know, as our capital city, so first Washington Ballet as the host, as we should be, and then in order to give opportunities for dancers and again, somewhat what we provided for ourselves, opportunities for us to dance repertoire that we wouldn't necessarily dance in our home company. So I'm really eager to have dancers from New York City Ballet come and dance Giselle Pas de Deux or Les Sulfides, or things that I know that they're hungry for as far as their artistic diet, and dancers from ABT to dance Serenade, or any of the Balanchine rep that they don't have access to or ever will.
Yeah.
I never dance Serenade. You know, it's one of the things that I would have loved to dance.
Crime.
Well,
crime.
yeah, it's all my dreams now. Yes, I really, there's some, that's some of the great ballet. I mean, it's really hard for me to complain. I've had the greatest, most fortunate career, but yeah, there's some great roles. Concerto Barocco, Never Dance, Serenade. There's so much Balanchine rep I never dance. That's okay.
But it's in your heart to share.
We tried to stick some diamonds.
We put diamonds in our kind of interpolated Nutcracker sections.
Yeah, we did what we could to insert some of the gems. So that's what Washington Ballet welcomes. We hope it will be, and then Washington Ballet welcomes New York, and then London, and then Russia, and France, Germany.
It's such a good idea, and it's so good for everybody. It's good for, and you know, you can pair your own dancers with these visitors. You can do things that enliven it all, and choreographers and composers, and who knows.
I mean, it has to make sense. It's not just to have a guest come in for your company. It's to dance with, share rep. It's what we both know is so valuable about the artistic exchange, that it's not just a one-way street, but that everybody, including the audience, really benefits from it and feels a part of what the Washington Ballet is in our pursuit.
You just put the plane down. That was perfect. We're done. Thank you so much. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.